What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Yami Noob. Today we are doing a Yami Noob Q&A focusing on beginner rider questions. I polled the folks over on Instagram to see what motorcycle related questions that I could answer for them. And the boys came through, they delivered. We have a ton of questions to get through. We're gonna try to get through as many as possible, get the most interesting ones that I find the best, and see all the great answers that I come up with. Before we get started though, there's a very cool promo going on at yaminoob.co. Let me tell you more about it.
It's your Papa Yam here with another exciting giveaway. Are you tired of being shackled to the gas pump, constantly refueling and draining your wallet? Well, it's time to break free and achieve your independence this 4th of July. Introducing the Ultimate Riding Season giveaway brought to you by yours truly. For 5 days only, we're giving you the chance to win a $500 gas card. That's right, folks, $500 of pure freedom at the pump. It's super easy to get entered to win. Simply head over to yaminoob.co, pick out anything you want from our site, and you'll be automatically entered. There are no codes required, but the giveaway will only last for this week. Whether you're grabbing some cool riding gear, upgrading your trusty Busa with the Leo Vinci slip-on exhaust, every purchase puts you one step closer to riding with a full tank, all paid for by your sweet Papa Yam. Simple as that. A season of riding gas. That's the kind of freedom we're talking about here, my friends. So what are you waiting for? Head over to our store right now for your chance to achieve true independence from buying gas this riding season. But this is one you don't want to miss. Time is running out. Ride free, my little squids.
All right, so the first question comes from I'm DeBomb, asks, should I turbo tune, upgrade, etc. my beginner bike for fun or to make it go faster? Typically, it doesn't make sense to highly modify your beginner bike. It usually just makes sense to just get a faster motorcycle. Motorcycles are very different from cars, for example, where it may make sense to turbo them or do certain things to them. For motorcycles, it usually just makes more sense to just get a faster bike than to do a bunch of work. Turbo bikes are also very finicky. Ask me how I know, and it's usually not worth it in my opinion. John Hall PT asks how to build up to getting your knee down / turn in harder. So these are two different questions and I have two different answers. Getting your knee down is a byproduct of speed, not necessarily a goal that you should be trying to hit. And it usually only happens on track. If you're dragging knee on street, you're riding entirely too fast, in my opinion. So whenever you're on track and you start building up the pace, eventually with more and more lean angle and correct body position, your knee will naturally touch the ground. You'll feel it. It's very distinct when it happens and it feels really cool. And then you just kind of get used to the feeling, and then you realize that if you are dragging knee, you need to pick your body up further and move the bike away and try to reduce lean angle. And it's actually a good barometer to tell you how you're doing with the lean angle. In terms of turning in harder, you don't really need to focus on this. You don't need to think about flicking the bike in as fast as possible. That's really not going to do anything for you. In fact, it's probably just going to upset the bike. There's certain corners on tracks and stuff where you may need to do a quick transition left and right, but smoothly getting the bike over is way better than trying to learn how to turn it in as fast as possible. Trailing your brakes and carrying more gas and getting it to wide open sooner is going to get you to ride faster than flicking in as quick as possible. It's just going to upset the bike. Shy Sinex asks, can you rev match downshift while simultaneously rear braking? Is it bad for the bike? Yeah, it doesn't do anything. All you're doing when you're rev match downshifting is just increasing the engine speed to match the transmission speed so that the chain doesn't take too much load and your rear wheel doesn't do anything. By dragging the rear brake or using the rear brake while you are doing that, you're just closing the caliper on the disc and just slowing the bike down a little. It doesn't do anything different than if you were to be on the front brake and to be downshifting. You're just simply helping the motorcycle slow and pinching the calipers while the engine and the chain are doing different things. The motorcycle is definitely designed to do that. You can absolutely grab front brake, rear brake, or both while you downshift and blip the throttle. ZZZ Delabori asks, why are insurance rates going up so much? Is it because of more crashes and unsafe riders? Man, I've seen this across the board, and I think it has more to do with shop rates for fixing the existing crashes that are happening and the overall cost of living crisis that's kind of happening, at least here in the United States. Inflation obviously is kind of running away out of control. Everything's getting more expensive, and as such, insurance rates are going to creep up in price too. Everything kind of, I mean, if you think about it, insurance is related to everything, right? Cost of materials, cost of labor, all that good stuff. So I don't think it's necessarily that in your area people are crashing more or having more claims. I just think it's a fact that the economy overall is having some issues and prices are going up across the board, insurance as well. Haran Yaner asks, if you can't wheelie, can you really ride? That's a great question. I've met many super fast and experienced motorcyclists who never really bothered to learn how to do extremely good wheelies. Wheelies are very specific skills, and it's super cool when you can do them correctly. You know, people like Jixabra who can just sit on dank balance point nooners and rock the bike back and forth. That's very cool, but you can spend an entire lifetime and become an amazing motorcyclist, a safe motorcyclist, a lifelong motorcyclist, without ever really learning how to do an amazing wheelie. I know several people that are like that. So I wouldn't say that if you can't wheelie, like a really good one, it means you're a bad rider. It just means that you never learned how to do that specific skill. I don't think that's that important, really. Lil Menso asks, foot brake first, then hand brake. This is debated a lot. Now, it's probably debated mostly in Harley communities because the vast majority of your stopping power on a motorcycle comes from the front brake. About 70 to 80% of your stopping power comes from the front brake. Now, why is that? Because the load is going into the front tire, and at a certain point, the rear is just kind of skittering around and it's not even really contacting the ground. Without contact on the ground, there's no grip from the tire, there's no braking force to be done, really. I think you should always focus on your front brake pressure way much over your rear brake pressure. Both are used in conjunction for an emergency stop. I think that if you have a situation that's coming up towards you, you should add pressure for both and increase as much as possible so you can limit damage or get out of the way or do whatever you need to do. Or if you're on track, for example, do the same thing, light pressure and then add a bunch of brake pressure, right? That's how we're taught to ride in different racing schools and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Sylvain Gentoli, for example, a World Superbike Championship winner, he ran a whole season, never touched his rear brake. So I don't know. I think the front brake matters way more than the rear brake. I know that a lot of racers talk about touching the rear brake to get the bike to pivot and turn. I have never really found a use for it. I've never really tried it much or used it much. But I'm also not riding at an extraordinarily high level. I just ride at the club pace level. But yeah, for a street application, focus on those front brakes, definitely. Hamza SV asks, Panigale V2 going from an R7 a good move? Love your content. Well, thank you, Hamza. I appreciate it. I think that's a great move. I think that if you're going from an R7 and you've spent some time with it, gotten the ropes down, maybe done a track day or two, done a bunch of weekend twisty road riding, you're ready for the next jump up in power, and you want something that still has that twin cylinder character and pizzazz, but just more, and you want a Ducati, the V2 is an awesome motorcycle. We had one of those late in 2020 and into 2021, and I really like the V2. Super, super cool machine. I do think the V4 platform is just more and better and cooler, but you can't go wrong with the V2. It's the classic Ducati twin cylinder thing, and I'm super glad that they still make it. Ash Harris Official asks, the most avoidable type of crash for a beginner. Hands down, the most common beginner crash, I think this is proven out by data as well, is a beginner rider running wide in a corner. That's kind of hard to say. This is the most common thing. A beginner rider target fixates, doesn't understand that they need to keep leaning and turning and looking through a turn, looks at a guardrail and just goes right to it and low sides and falls off the bike. That's the most common crash. Motorcyclists are very quick to say, oh my God, everybody's on their phones, everybody's out to get me, people are brake checking me, or people are coming into my lane and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, people are distracted while they drive, but statistically speaking, the most likely thing that's going to happen to you if you ride a motorcycle and crash is a single vehicle crash on a twisty road, usually at night or involving alcohol. So I would say as a beginner rider, if you avoid alcohol, you avoid nighttime riding, and you learn how to properly negotiate corners, you are at a pretty low risk of crashing, honestly. You're probably not going to have some car just kind of sideswipe you or turn left on you, or, those incidents are pretty rare. And you can also, I would say for all the beginner riders out there, just slow everything down and be aware of all of your surroundings. People are very predictable on the road. The other day, Garrett Gerloff and I were riding here in Austin, and there was a red car that blew the stop sign and just turned right into us. And we both were like 100 feet back from him, and we both said, yep, he's going to do it. At the same time, we said, yep, he's going to do it. Because you can see he wasn't slowing to a stop. He didn't observe his stop sign, and he just blew right through it. So having those powers of observation as a beginner rider is definitely going to help you. But avoiding a single vehicle accident, low siding on a twisty road, target fixating, that's the most common one. Be on the lookout for those. I am Jake McGree asks, how do you stay profitable? Pretty easy. You have some money coming in at the top, you got some money coming out in the middle, and you hope that at the bottom, the number is positive. That's how you stay profitable. Spend less than you make. Very simple. Boom.in asks, when you were a squid, did you prefer solo rides or rides with friends? How did you learn best? To be honest, I have always preferred riding solo. I'm a bit of a recluse. I don't really like hanging out with people too much, I'll be perfectly honest. And I just find that riding in groups can be a little distracting, especially when everybody's on the comms, just squawking away and talking or whatever. I don't mind it. I've done plenty of group rides here with the team at Yammy Noob in the past and with personal friends of mine and stuff. I don't mind it, and it can add a lot to the experience, but I do find that for me to be focused and as safe as possible, and for me to do the kind of riding I like to do, I just like doing it solo. I don't have to worry about anybody's pace. I don't have to worry about anybody keeping up with me or me keeping up with anybody. I don't have to worry about people doing crazy stuff while they're riding or being too close to me or too far away from me. It just makes the whole thing a lot more peaceful, and I get on a motorcycle to experience Zen. I like experiencing Zen and calm and recentering myself on my bikes. It's also why I cycle alone too. I don't like doing group rides on bicycles. Trent Ayers asks, do you think you'll ever bring back the Yamcast? Well, that's a big question. I think it's possible in the future. I don't know if it would come back in the same way that it was in the past with Spite and stuff like that, because I don't know, he's off doing his own channel. I don't know if we could come together. I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense to bring on a different host. People may not like that, but I do miss doing the Yamcast, and so there may be a future in which we bring it back, but at this time it's kind of on hiatus. Redhead asks, how different are hill starts on a bike than on a manual car? That's a great question, actually. They're basically the same thing, except on a motorcycle, you have control over front brake and rear brake independently, whereas on a car, you hit the brake pedal and all four calipers activate. So that makes it so that you actually have a hill hold feature built in on a motorcycle, because if you put your left foot, whoops, there goes my phone. If you put your left foot down and you have your right foot on the rear brake and you're in gear, you can feather the clutch and feather the rear brake and feather the throttle, all three at the same time, and pull away from a hill without rolling back at all. Whereas on a car, you have your left foot on the clutch, your right foot on the brake. As soon as you let off the brake, assuming you don't do the handbrake trick, which you can do, you can pull the handbrake and then feather all three as well, but that's where you roll back in a manual car. But I think on a bike it's easier because you have foot controls and hand controls for all that stuff. So it's similar, but also a little bit different. Smitchy714 asks, in your videos, you talk a lot about the Turbo Busa. What's so good about it? It's not that there's something that's like so amazing about the Turbo Busa. It's more that it's just like, I've never really seen another one. I've never ridden another one. This is the only one I've ever owned, obviously. They're very mythical. They're not, I mean, it's still a Hayabusa. It rides great. It's very comfortable. It's got like a sport touring vibe to it. But at the end of the day, it's an insane turbocharged beast of a monster motorcycle. And that's really the draw about it, is just how analog and crazy it is. I wouldn't say it's a good bike. There's a lot of stuff that's just weird about it. But it's a ton of fun. And I had a lot of fun with mine. And maybe someday I'll revive it. I don't know. It's kind of sad just sitting here, but I don't know. 7 Emmanuel P asks, how much can I trust my Pilot Force or any other tire? This is a hard question to answer, because tire feel is based on your personal confidence in the rubber and also your experience as a motorcyclist, and also your bike's limits, right? There's so many factors, right? There are environmental factors, temperature, your bike, your type of tire, all this stuff. And the more miles you rack up, the more you can sense when a tire is giving you confidence and a tire is not giving you confidence. So all I can really say for that is just rack up more and more miles, and you will eventually get to a point where you can identify a confident feel out of a tire and a not so confident feel. And again, that's going to depend on environmental factors, wet weather, temperature, rain, I mean, all kinds of stuff. So just rack up the miles, and then you'll understand how to trust more tires. I will say this, any reputable brand, Michelin, Pirelli, Dunlop, Bridgestone, all those, sport touring rubber and up on any of those, plenty of grip. Way more grip than you know what to do with when operated correctly. A lot of people underload the front tire and then they wash out and then they wonder why they crashed, and it's like you weren't operating the bike correctly. In the Yamaha Champ School, they often say the tire can take a tremendous amount of load, but it cannot take an abrupt load, right? And that's very true. If you stab the brakes mid-corner, you'll find the grip gives out because the tire wasn't expecting that. So again, it just takes a lot of time and experience to build confidence in your ability to determine how a tire is behaving. And Doran Stan asks, opinion on the newly announced Triumph 400s. Man, this was a cool release. I just recently saw this yesterday. I think they came out, and I think I might make a video about it, but I actually really want to buy one of these bikes and do as a giveaway, maybe our new modern classic, because super interesting. I think it's really cool that Triumph built a brand new from the ground up platform, an honest to God beginner bike that's going to be priced competitively. I think if they can get the price under $6,000, it's an absolute home run. The thing looks cool. I love that they made the side of it look like a Bonneville, like the engine and everything looks like a Bonneville, just missing a cylinder on the other side. I think it's a super cool little bike. I'm excited to see what people end up doing with them, and I think they're going to provide tons of smiles and tons of miles for a lot of beginner riders. Very, very excited about that development. I love seeing more entry-level options for our sport, our lifestyle, our hobby, because that means more people are going to get into it. That's something that we've been talking about, that Royal Enfield is killing it. Triumph is now taking a page out of their book and doing it better, in my opinion. I think they're just doing a better job. And this is the type of bike that I have begged for Harley-Davidson to make. If Harley-Davidson made something like this for Americans, I think it would sell like crazy. Not like the Buell Blast, you know, sell a Harley-Davidson that looks like a cool Harley, that just has a cool little single cylinder and is marketed to beginner riders. It will sell very, very well. I think this Triumph's gonna go gangbusters, honestly. SoCal ZX10R, for new track riders such as myself, is it better to focus on body position or lines? 1000% focus on your lines. Our mechanic for our endurance race bike, he's a former racer, old dog racer. He's been around the block for probably longer than I've been alive. Almost positive he has been around longer than I've been alive. And he has a thing that he basically just says, like, F your body position. He actually has a hat that he makes that I wear at the racetrack that says F your body position in German. And the reason that we say that is because you look at 500cc racers from days past, their body position was all kinds of messed up. And that was, due to the fact that they had to manage 500cc bikes that constantly wanted a high side, so they would ride the bike a little bit different. They would ride it a little more crossed up, just in case the bike, decided to spit them off. Their center of gravity was a little bit different. But yeah, man, people had really messed up looking body position, but still went really, 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 really fast. The only thing that body position does is make you feel more confident on the bike and get the bike a little bit less lean angle. That's really all that it's doing. But at the end of the day, if you focus on lines, throttle, and brakes, if you just focus on those three fundamental things, I mean, your body position can be messed up. You'll still be really fast. You'll still be really, really fast, and you'll be in the A group, and you'll be with the top guys, and you'll learn so much more, because those are the fundamental building blocks to riding a motorcycle effectively and efficiently on track. It's not body position. There's lots of little details like, your foot position, trailing in the bike. There's so many little things you can do on track that's going to help you get to be that fast, cool rider you want to be. But dude, lines, throttle, and brakes, those are your building blocks. Don't focus as much on body position. I know it looks cool for Instagram, but honestly, My body position is not that fantastic, and I can ride circles around most Instagram wannabes. Trust me. Here's a good question. Callison Mark asks, is it okay to go through a car wash with me bike? I'd like to think that he's a pirate. Oh, can I go through a car wash with me bike? No, it's not a good idea. Number one, you're gonna get really wet. I assume you're talking about like a drive-through car wash. That's not a good idea. If you're talking about a car wash where you just roll in and you just kind of pressure wash it, that's totally fine. Just make sure to use your noggin. If you're using one of those high flow pressure washers they have at the car wash, obviously don't point it at something that looks like an electrical cable or a fuse box or something like that. You're probably gonna have a bad time if you blast an electrical component with the pressure washer. But stand a good 3 to 4 feet away from it. Wide sweeping area, totally fine to use. Temporary asks, how much has cycling helped your performance during races? A lot, actually. Like way more than I thought. That was actually the main reason I started cycling, because I just needed to build up some cardio for my general racing and that I was doing. I realized I wasn't strong enough on my bike, and it helped a lot. But I will say, jump rope and cycling combined together is really, for me personally, what I've found to be very useful for building strength for riding a motorcycle. A lot of MotoGP guys nowadays, you look at them like Fabio Quartararo, Aleix Espargaro, they're not particularly big and strong guys, but they're very, very powerful from a cardio and an endurance perspective. So you look at Fabio, you look at Aleix, they spend a lot of time running, jump roping, and cycling. Aleix especially spends a lot of time cycling, but much like me, he just likes to cycle, so that's what he chooses to do. Because you really ride a motorcycle with your legs and your core. So if you spend a lot of time cycling, maybe doing rowing or sit-ups and stuff like that, calisthenics, that builds a strong foundation to ride the bike, and it really provides you the ability to spend a lot more time to ride. The reason I started doing this is because I started endurance racing, and I was like, dude, I don't have the stamina to last an hour out here on track. Now I can do an hour and a half stint, usually no problem. Usually pretty good, depending on temperature. If it's really, really hot, things start to change a little bit. But yeah, I would say cycling helps a ton. Ryan the Pig 1322 asks, the best way to start racing motorbikes. I really think that endurance racing 400s or 300s is the absolute best way to do it. The first reason is because you can share the costs. You can build a team out with you and your buddies. You guys can go all in on one bike, and then you can go and do a 6, 8, 12-hour endurance event, and you're gonna get so many race laps in. Dollar for dollar, it's the best thing you can do. If you share all of those costs, it usually can come out to like $100, $200 per person per race weekend, because 400s barely use up tires, they don't use up much gas, and they're pretty cheap to repair if you crash it, and you can get in 70, 80, 90 laps at a time and really build up your chops and really focus and practice on stuff. So I think endurance racing little bikes is the best way to get into racing motorcycles. The other way I would recommend too would be motocross. Motocross is really cheap. It's like 30 or 40 bucks to go and do practice day. It's a very, very cheap way to get into motorsports for motorcycles. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up the Q&A for today. Thank you so much for everybody who submitted a question, and be sure to check out YamiNoob.co for that awesome promo for our extravaganza for July 4th. We truly do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
Oh, man. I got to win this race. I better keep watching YamiNoob. Oh, man. Oh no! I can't see!